Hey everybody, happy Monday. Super interesting chat today with a leader in the mobile communications industry, talking about the present and future state of the industry at the Mobile Ecosystem Forum, otherwise known as MEF. Dario, how are you?
Hi, Evan. Lovely to be here. Thank you very much. Looking forward to our
Well,
chat.
thanks for being here from the UK. Hopefully, summer has arrived like it has here in Boston. But let's get on with it and tell us about your journey a little bit to being the CEO at the MEF. And for those who aren't familiar with the organization, give us a little bit of an overview.
Sure. Well, let's start with potentially what's the MEF. It's a not-for-profit. We are an industry association. 200 more than 200 members have joined together. It started
Wow.
about 24 years ago, something like that. It was at a time when mobile was definitely a secondary medium, but also was a voice-centric medium. And at the time, the mobile entertainment forum, as it started, said, well, you can do more things, data. And the main application at the time of data were, simple SMS messaging or content. Now, that generated much more interest, and by now we cover a lot more, including a lot of business-to-business services as well. So we are real ecosystem forum. So that's what we do. We don't do standards. We bring people together. We have lovely chats like this one, and in some cases that creates a bit more of an insight or interactions. We have a more official role in some countries where we also do giving our neutrality. We manage anti-fraud solutions specifically for smishing or in the code of conduct. So UK, Spain, Ireland, Brazil, Indonesia, it's places where you've seen us managing something for the industry. Now, about myself, I'm not sure there's very much interest, but I've been a consultant for many years in the late 90s and beginning of the 2000s. But then I joined mobile operators, or multiple of those, for my sins. Truly enjoyed the time when mobile operators were really changing their skin as well, some more successful than others. And it allowed me to travel the world as I was in Europe, but eventually I moved to Southeast Asia, to the Middle East, to Russia. And it was a complete luck that I ended up to MEF, as in I was always in MEF. I'm always, throughout my career, I was working with MEF from pretty much when it started, or company were working with MEF. And all my employers were members of MEF. So from Deutsche Telecom, Axiata, MTS, and so on. Eventually, I was elected in the board without expecting to be elected. That was when I was in Russia, thinking that Russia was going to be far away for people to want to. There was a lot of interest at the time in joining Russia, and Russia was more open. And then eventually after that, I was asked to become the CEO. Something wasn't really planned, but serendipity in life. I'm now 5 years later. I'm still here somehow. But it has
Well,
been
you do
true.
a great job, and the team of thinking about the future of the industry. And speaking of the future, let's take a little look at the past. I mean, I started my career in paging, which was the big hot mobile app before smartphones. And we thought, oh, these phones are great, but they'll never be as good as a pager, coverage and design. And, we were really excited about the future of the industry. But c'est la vie. So what are, some of the key trends and changes that you've seen over the last 10 years, let's say? Won't go that far back to my start in the industry, but what were some of the key changes and what excites you most about what's next?
Well, lots of changes. Let's try to be synthetic maybe. The first one is how the mobile industry is maturing, and maturity is not a bad thing. For some of those markets, you have to change your skin sometimes. Those pagers, probably those companies don't exist, but messaging, wow, what a great run it has had, and it keeps on having. Even there might be some changes, so keep on looking at what's coming next. So MEF has been very close to the vast build, the messaging, all some of those markets. Some people will think, oh, that's very mature, it's been around. The mobile services is a maturity of that, is how to deal with maturity. It's a big theme. But the second one is innovation, just because when we were championing that things are going to change, things are changing right now. And they're changing because they're not just mobile services right now, but they're just digital services in the background. So enterprise communication is one of those exciting things that are happening. It's not just mobile, but mobile is driving a force of revolution, how you communicate. If you're an enterprise, how do you engage? How your customer experience is developed now. There's a lot of transparent things that you would not see. APIs, we're talking about plenty of those, or enrichment of the experience that happens through the mobile phones and through the mobile network that's linked to that phone. So that is becoming itself quite an exciting thing. By the way, there's some real sexy stuff which we sometimes don't want to talk about because it's overhyped, but we have to, right? AI, new forms, of interactions with our networks, voice-centric, virtual reality, Web 3.0, all of that is pretty exciting. A bit further down the line, at MEF, we tend to look where the business is today, but equally how the business can move to tomorrow. And some of these things are definitely about how can you move to a tomorrow in this market.
Yeah, always focus on tomorrow. And speaking of which, let's talk about driving innovation. I talked to lots of small, innovative companies. They're doing amazing work, but a lot of the innovation is the oxygen of innovation is being consumed by the big tech companies. You are sort of dominating the R&D spending. They're dominating a lot of the new products out there. We can all name the top 7, 8, 10 companies in the space. What is the future of innovation? Are we going to have to rely just on big tech, or can we see a more, diverse and balanced landscape when it comes to new ideas, IP, innovation, new entrants, that sort of thing?
Well, interesting. They're very key discussions for us. First of all, let me start with Mobile Ecosystem Forum. We don't do standards, so we're not a standard body, but we're very happy. We sometimes talk about business practices, but we're very happy for you to tell you, pick the innovations wherever you find it. And within innovation, you can still make innovations on the top of it, but how you do it, which is very important. So it's not just the technology, it's culture is behind it, it's processes, it's all of those things that make it the final big business and big bucks for so many of our members. But let's talk about the big tech. What we have seen in the last 15 years definitely has been moved towards these large companies that have dominated by the sheer power of innovations and the power of their balance sheet. They're big company investing. And in some of the things we're seeing, you really need a big buck to sit at the table. From even AI, to mention the last one, it's an expensive thing if you have to build a new language. And there is a big but. Regulations also is changing some of that. We are now seeing how different regions, specifically outside the US potentially, are reacting to the dominance of some of these companies and trying to breaking it up. Europe, China in a different way. We've seen India, Brazil is playing in both camps. So multiple areas and multiple things are starting to appear. So some of those dynamics might change. About last year, we wrote a piece on how interesting our standards are becoming again, as it might be true that so much of the innovation was front-ended by this company, but smaller things, very significant, are now starting to come. We are championing one thing, and with many others. I should make a list of all those. But for instance, the VCon, the concessions, the kind of a virtual container for information. So that's a standard that might have an incredible impact on some of the things we're doing, on compliance, on enriching a conversation like the one that we're having. So make sure that we were this conversation, what we talked about, what we shared, what was agreed, something like that. Just like your V calendar is now the base of so much of our daily emails. Maybe VCon will really start to signify a lot. So just an example of something that might be one of those boring startups that is really about a group of people coming together, very brainy and intelligent people, coming together with something better for the industry. I am reasonably optimistic on both camps. I think those big companies are still going to innovate. They're still going to be doing some great job. Potentially, there's much more that can be done with the standards and those standards and the blessing from some of the regulators and governments around there might also count for something.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think of RCS, for example, with Apple, who I never thought they'd come around, but with a little arm twisting and some legislation and some pressure from consumers, we're going to see RCS support. So again, not something every consumer is thinking about or even asking for, but they will experience the benefits of that pretty soon.
Indeed. And some people would say how the two somehow collaborate, because you could say it's a beginning of a standard, or it's a beginning of two big company, Apple and Google, managing to influence a lot. As last week, after the announcement, I think those companies and GSMA and mobile operators were sitting at the table. So it is really also the influence of what Google and Apple will bring to the table. It's also an equivalent, a big ingredient in that. So I think it's 1-1 in this game. I think it's an equal scoring. I wouldn't say that and nobody win. I hope that the consumer and the businesses will win in the end, having better interoperability. We'll see. RCS has not won the game yet, but it's a player. Now it's a player.
Yeah, just another great example. Talk about the global perspective of MEF. You've worked in so many diverse markets and you're active in all these different regions. It's tough to compare and contrast different markets and regions, but, I think about the US, which I know very well, and how we were so behind in mobile for so long. Believe it or not, people may not realize that, but in Europe, you had the GSM standard and you had 3G, and it looked like the US was kind of being left behind. And look, here we are now. It's a different world. How do you think about each region and the innovation and the differences between markets these days?
It's very interesting. It's interesting to see the relationship that are building. It's true that US was at one point behind, but because previously it was leading. So in analog mobile, it was leading, and pagers and so on.
Good point.
So by the time digital came, they still had all of this network built, so they didn't have to invest as much. And then you could say that eventually they really went back and the innovation started to come back in those, partly to the help of the OTT as well. Now, I think the US is a bit of a splendid isolation. That was the equivalent of Japan, because it's such a big market that it's so significant, it's so important, so specific, that some of its players can just spend most of the time looking at what's happening inside. Every now and then, we suggest we love to be in US, and we love to see the reactions when we start talking about what's happening in some other countries. So I think people are realizing, but I would say the US is definitely not the laggard right now. It is one of those markets where we'll lead. In some markets, I would say it's a clear path towards, improvements that everybody's looking at the US. Enterprise communication, by the way, again, something that wasn't one of its strengths in US. It's now potentially there. It's a cloud communications, but there's also SMS, it's MMS, it potentially will be RCS. But let's talk about how different the European region is starting to be a bit more similar right now, and regulations is having a much more direct impact. China is emerging as very similar, a fantastic market, a market where lots of innovation is really happening. And we probably in Europe have to look at what China is doing. The Africa is very difficult to say. There is one Africa, it's just like equivalent to Latin America. But within that, the countries and what is happening, the financial mobile market, Nigeria, an incredible development. Kenya still is the capital of mobile money worldwide. So you can pick and choose. There's so much happening worldwide that is really interesting to cross-relate to each other. If you're interested in RCS, by the way, and then I'll finish, look at India, look at Brazil. So there's always somewhere where you can you can find something interesting and learn from.
Oh, it's fantastic. Let's talk about the MEF a little bit. Maybe define or describe some of the initiatives that you have underway and the various studies and reports you do. You do a lot of fascinating work. I'm looking at your website now. I'll bring it up, but there's something about network as a service, really intriguing new opportunity for telcos and customers as well. How do you undertake those initiatives? What's going on behind the scenes, as it were?
So we like to think that our members are behind that, and network as a service. Oh, that's the other MEF, by the way. But so
wrong MEF. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm glad you're telling us. You're showing us that two MEF. There's a mobile ecosystem forum to use MEF.mobi or mobileecosystemforum.com, and to come and see us. And there is the MEF. It used to be the Metro Ethernet Forum. And by the way, two organizations, we were born in the same year. They came to a different perspective, and now we're talking about similar things.
Okay. Sorry for the confusion, folks. There's, 3-letter acronyms, always a challenge.
But very good, because now the MEF Metro Ethernet is the MEF Forum, and we are MEF, the mobile ecosystem.
You got to love the telecom industry. We love 3- and 4-letter acronyms. Yeah.
Exactly. But both of us are looking at two sides of, and by the way, it's not just us. So we collaborate with the GSMA, has got its open gateway initiatives, and we are bringing some experience from our members, including, let's say, the CPaaS industry, the communication platform industry as well. So we are now working on network as a services in that case. But I was saying, and if you are looking at one of the things we're going to be publishing next, it's not our website, but a little intro. Next week, I think, is going to be our consumer trust study. For 10 years, we covered 15 countries. In those 15 countries, we're looking year, what are they doing? What the consumers are telling them is happening. And it's a revealing, as the focus is about trust. Because unfortunately, one thing that we had to deal from the very beginning is the question of fraud in the system. And that has been different frauds, different elements, different parts of the industry. It used to be on VAS. We're now looking a lot at what's happening in the growth of enterprise communication, SMS, RCS, etc. So the question is, do consumers still rely and trust their relationship with mobile given the issues on privacy, on security, etc.? Now, the question is complex, because they do appreciate the great value they get from our services, but they have big concerns. And we as an industry forum, we are concerned that we need to rebuild that trust. We need to build a better relationship with our end users. And by the way, with some of the businesses that represent those end users as well. And so I think that's one of the big themes that we have been for quite a few years managing here. But other things you're going to be seeing, we're going to be in Jakarta next week. We were in Scandinavia, and we're going to be after in Canada. So we've got 3 different countries. The idea is that this is a very global market, but local and regional differences are very important. So ever make sure that we come and see you, or you come and see us. We're going to be in October in Las Vegas. So we were in Miami on a few weeks. So we're going to
I will be there at MWC, and I was there last year in Vegas. Great event. So we'll be sure to connect there. Maybe talk a little bit about the regulatory environment. We need so much to happen on the regulatory side as an industry and as consumers and businesses. We need more spectrum. We need more competition in some cases. We need a lot. Are we getting what we need as an industry and as consumers, or what work is yet to be done?
Careful what you might ask for, because at one point you might get it. I mean, this industry rightly has been bandwidth hungry. So, and the discussion regulations for last year has really been about their bandwidth and the conditions to get it. There's also big questions locally about taxations, which applies to here. Because it used to be the telecommunication used to be a lot of money, and demand was really one of the key questions. Now, if you're a mobile operator right now, it is not just how much bandwidth it is, but how difficult it is to maintain all the different separate technologies and how you need to disrupt your backend almost, because we are constantly reminded of the fragility of complexity of what we have to do. So we need to move. We'll keep on tracking. One of the things you will see, we have a data services. One of the things we've been asked by our members and what to cover is switch off dates and internal date, all of the different Gs and what will be the next Gs. So there is plenty happening there. We still need more bandwidth, but we need to make sure that we are more efficient as a business overall in telecommunication. And that is, we hear a lot of mobile operators that are starting to feel too much of a pain. So we're now going back to fewer mobile operators, fewer networks, virtualization, network as a service, the openness as well, could be some of those answers, but not just. when we're talking. There is a big podcast series as well, as we are hosting some of the big names. We hope to have you Evan, very, very soon, where we're going to talk about what does it take to do this transformation in this industry. What do we need? And we realize there is an HR personnel, there's a personnel question, new people. There is a technical questions behind it. There is a cultural question. There is a business model questions to be addressed, all of those. So I would say, in terms of regulation, potentially we might need to ask more fair play as well areas. What's the relationship between OTT and telecoms? Why they treat us so differently? It is 20 years of a Pulver report, but has a regulation really been differently in terms of structure globally after that? After just saying we don't touch the internet services, it is time to have a next chapter for the next 20 years. I think those are some of the questions that are really intriguing and interesting. And it goes without saying, I should never play down. Bandwidth still important. But I don't think the number one question right now, there are more fundamental questions for our industry. We need to look back and probably look at the mirror and say, are we ready for the next 20 years?
Well said. So in terms of future trends and opportunities, you're of course a mobile geek, as am I. What gets you really excited and interested in looking at the future? There's so much on our plate, from 6G to all these AI powered services to today at Starlink, introducing Starlink Mini for portable Starlink. Just so much happening. What's on top of your mind and the MEF's mind around future technologies?
I'll go back to what I was saying. Sometimes looking at the new innovations, a geek like me would get overexcited and would say, we talked about, we all need to remember our industry. I remember going to a mobile operator and say, time to look at all of it. Why do we have this old tariff, and what do we do with these? How many MMS users we have? And it turns out that was a great thing. Maturity is a great gift we have in this industry. Let's not throw the baby with bathwater kind of things. So there is a lot we need to do and improve on the existing services. Saying that, the geek of me will say AI is not just a hype, it's really changing the way we as a small company do business. So I can even see only big impact on big telcos and big innovations. We see the importance of anti-fraud, but equally the importance on security, because fraud and AI fraud is coming and happening today. So there is the kind of the weapon race is started on that side as well. So security is a big question as well. We're really super excited by the new form of richer communication. So media was rich until yesterday. How can it be more rich and more interactive next year? Well, there are something, and you might buy special provisions and other things from Apple and many others. It might be very niche right now, but it might be there is a bigger experience coming up out there. Maybe something I'm too old to understand right now. Luckily, we have lots of young people on MEF, so we'll keep on relying on them.
Yes, new blood is always great. Well, thank you so much for sharing, just a bit of a walkthrough of the MEF and its amazing work. And definitely we'll see you at MWC Las Vegas and other industry forums, of course, the big get-together in Barcelona next year. And amazing work. Everyone follow the MEF. There's a couple, but I've added it to the link in the bio here and the link in the post so you can check it out. Thanks so much, Dario.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.